My son Marcus excluded me from his wedding, then brazenly mailed me an invoice for $85,000 to fund his extravagant celebration and romantic getaway to the Bahamas. He even scrawled at the bottom, "Consider yourself lucky I'm letting you contribute to something meaningful." I stared at those words, feeling my heartbreak crystallize into something harder, more dangerous. His fantasy of a flawless, Instagram-perfect wedding was about to become his worst nightmare. Before we dive deeper into this story, please hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us. I sat in the fading afternoon light of my modest Charleston home, the November breeze rustling through the magnolia tree outside my window. The thick manila envelope had been waiting for me when I returned from my morning walk, my name written in Marcus's unmistakable architect's script across the front. My heart had actually skipped. After 8 months of complete silence, I thought maybe, just maybe, this was my wedding invitation. My weathered fingers trembled slightly as I broke the wax seal, expecting to find elegant cardstock announcing the date, the venue, perhaps even a handwritten note asking me to give him away like we dreamed about when he was just a boy building sandcastles on Folly Beach. Instead, what tumbled out was a stack of itemized invoices that hit me like a physical blow. The total at the bottom made my vision blur. $85,000. My eyes scanned the cruel details. $55,000 for the Magnolia Plantation rental, with its sprawling oak trees and antebellum charm. $25,000 for premium catering featuring Wagyu beef and champagne, flown in from France. Another $15,000 for their honeymoon villa in Nassau, complete with a private butler and infinity pool overlooking crystal-clear waters. But it was the handwritten note paperclip to the final page that shattered something inside me. In Marcus's precise handwriting, "Dad, given all the embarrassment you've caused our family over the years, you should feel grateful that I'm allowing you to contribute to something this important. This covers your obligated share. Wire the funds by Friday. Sophia and I are counting on you to come through for once." I read those words 3 times, each reading making them more surreal. Embarrassment? The embarrassment of being a devoted single father who worked double shifts at the construction site to put him through architecture school? The embarrassment of choosing family over career advancement, staying local when bigger opportunities called from Atlanta or Charlotte? My hand found the framed photograph on the side table. Marcus at 7, gap-toothed and giggling as I pushed him on the tire swing I'd hung from our backyard oak. His tiny arms wrapped around my neck, whispering, "You're the best daddy in the whole world." How had that precious boy transformed into this cold stranger who saw me as nothing more than a walking ATM? The shock hit first, a crushing weight in my chest that made it hard to breathe. I crumpled the note in my fist, the paper crackling like autumn leaves, but then I carefully smoothed it out again. No, I wouldn't let blind rage control me. That would be exactly what Marcus expected from his embarrassing, blue-collar father. I stood slowly, my joints protesting after a long day of physical labor, and walked to the kitchen sink. The cold water I splashed on my face didn't wash away the sting of betrayal. Marcus thought he could erase me from his new life, while simultaneously raiding my life savings, money I'd scraped together through years of overtime, money I'd been setting aside since losing my beloved wife Caroline to breast cancer in 2018. He'd called exactly once after her funeral, his voice clinical and distant. "Dad, you really should have pushed harder for better doctors. People with resources find a way." As if love and determination could overcome insurance limitations and medical realities. I returned to the living room, picking up Caroline's antique music box from the mantel, a wedding gift from her grandmother that still played "The Way You Look Tonight." Its gentle melody had once filled our home with warmth, back when family meant something to Marcus. Back before Sophia entered the picture with her social media influence and her obsession with appearing wealthy. The hurt began transforming into something sharper, more focused. I set the music box down carefully and felt a dangerous smile cross my lips. If Marcus wanted to play games with money and manipulation, he was about to learn that his old man had a few moves he'd never seen before. I glanced at the invoice again, its numbers seeming to mock me from the coffee table. But as my initial devastation faded, Cold clarity took its place. Marcus had made a critical error. He'd underestimated me. He saw a simple construction worker, not the strategic mind that had built a successful contracting business from nothing, not the man who'd navigated complex building codes and difficult clients for 30 years. A direct confrontation would be useless. Marcus had perfected the art of dismissing me, of making me feel small and outdated. But I could be subtle, methodical. I could gather intelligence, find the weak points in their perfect plan, and strike where it would hurt most. My old laptop sat on the kitchen counter, dusty but functional. Time to do some reconnaissance. That predatory smile lingered as I opened the laptop, its familiar hum filling the quiet house. I pulled up Facebook first. Marcus had blocked me months ago, but Sophia's profile was public, a carefully curated showcase of their supposedly glamorous lifestyle. She couldn't resist flaunting every detail of their relationship, every expensive purchase, every exclusive event. I scrolled through post after post, each one a small knife wound. Can't wait to say I do at the stunning Riverside Manor. Our blessed life, Tasser's dream wedding. The date jumped out at me. December 8th, 2024, just 3 weeks away. The photos showed the venue in all its glory, a restored plantation house with white columns and manicured gardens, Spanish moss draping ancient oaks like nature's own wedding decorations. I poured myself a glass of the bourbon Carolyn and I used to share on our anniversary, its burn helping me focus. This wasn't about wallowing anymore. This was about action. I started taking notes on a legal pad, building a comprehensive picture of their plans. Venue, Riverside Manor, $55K rental. I clicked through to their website, noting their cancellation policies and payment schedules. Caterer, Charleston Elite Events, boasting farm-to-table excellence for the discerning palate, serving 180 guests. I found their social media posts about the upcoming Torres Williams wedding, the staff clearly excited about the high-profile event. The photographer was some hotshot from Savannah named Isabella Cruz, whose portfolio was linked in multiple comments. Can't wait to capture your magical day, she'd written under one of Sophia's posts. The DJ, the florist, the string quartet. Every vendor was tagged, every detail documented in Sophia's desperate need for validation. I cross-referenced everything, building a network map of all the moving pieces. The wedding planner jumped out, Miranda Walsh, owner of Charleston Dreams Wedding Planning, with a client list that read like a who's who of Charleston society. A quick LinkedIn search showed we had a mutual connection, Tom Bradley, a contractor I'd worked with on several high-end residential projects. My phone buzzed with a text from my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. Heard Marcus is getting married, so exciting. When's the big day? The irony wasn't lost on me. My neighbors knew more about my son's wedding plans than I did. As I dug deeper into the vendor network, a plan began forming. Each of these businesses depended on reputation, on word-of-mouth referrals, on the trust that comes from delivering perfect events for demanding clients. And Marcus, in his arrogance, had made himself vulnerable by putting everything in his name while expecting me to foot the bill. I found Miranda Walsh's direct number on her website and checked the time, 9:30 p.m., too late to call tonight. But tomorrow morning, I'd reach out for a concerned father wanting to discuss the payment arrangements. Time to see how solid their perfect plan really was. But first, I needed backup. Someone who understood Marcus better than perhaps even I did. Someone with skills I lacked. I scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't called in years. Danny Rodriguez. Danny had been Marcus's best friend growing up, practically a second son to Caroline and me. They'd been inseparable through high school, but when Marcus left for college and started climbing the social ladder, he'd cut Danny loose like dead weight. He's not going anywhere in life, Dad, Marcus had said dismissively when I'd asked why Danny wasn't invited to his graduation party. I can't afford to be associated with people like that. Danny had ended up doing just fine. He'd started his own private investigation business and had built a solid reputation in Charleston's legal community. More importantly, he had a camera, experience with surveillance, and every reason to help me take Marcus down a peg. I found his number and sent a text. Danny, it's Mr. Torres. Need to talk to you about Marcus. Can we meet tomorrow? It's important. The response came back within minutes. Holy shit, Mr. T, of course. Coffee at 10 a.m. at the place on King Street where we used to take you after Little League. And whatever Marcus did, I'm already on your side. I smiled for the first time in days. A real smile, not the bitter grimace I'd been wearing. Tomorrow, the counterattack would begin. The next morning arrived with the kind of crisp December air that makes Charleston feel almost magical. I drove through the historic district, past the rainbow-colored houses and horse-drawn carriages, toward our meeting spot. The cafe on King Street hadn't changed much. Still the same checkered tablecloths and the same smell of fresh beignets that had drawn us here for years after Marcus's baseball games. Danny was already waiting, and the years had been kind to him. He'd filled out, traded his teenage awkwardness for the confident bearing of a successful business owner. But his smile was the same warm grin I remembered from 1,000 family dinners. Mr. T, he said, standing to give me a firm handshake that turned into a quick hug. Man, it's good to see you. You look good. Tired maybe, but good. Thanks, son. And call me Robert now. I think we're past the formalities. I slid into the booth across from him. How's the PI business treating you? Can't complain. Turns out all those years of Marcus making me sneak around and cover for him gave me some useful skills. He grinned, but there was an edge to it. So what's our boy done now? And please tell me it's something I can help you nail him for. I slid the invoice across the table. Danny's expression shifted as he read, his jaw tightening with each line item. When he reached Marcus's note, he let out a low whistle. Jesus Christ, Robert, this is cruel even for him. He looked up, eyes blazing. He really banned you from the wedding? After everything you did for that ungrateful piece of... He caught himself. Sorry, I know he's your son. Don't apologize, I've been thinking worse things myself. I leaned forward. The wedding's in 3 weeks. I'm not paying a dime, but I need to be strategic about this. Can you help me document what happens when their perfect plan falls apart? Danny's grin turned predatory. Robert, you just made my day. You know how many times I've fantasized about Marcus getting his comeuppance? And now I get to help make it happen and get paid for it? He pulled out his phone. I've already got some intel for you. Want to know what your loving son's been up to lately? I nodded, pouring cream into my coffee with steady hands. So Marcus has been playing the big shot all over town, dropping hints about his family money backing this wedding. He's been treating vendors like servants, demanding discounts because of his connections. Just last week, he made the florist redo the entire centerpiece design 3 times, then tried to negotiate the price down because he was bringing them exposure. That sounds like him, I said quietly. Always believed the world owed him something. Gets better. Sophia's been posting constantly about the family estate where the reception's being held, making it sound like you own Riverside Manor instead of renting it. Some of her influencer friends are expecting a certain level of authenticity, let's say. I felt that dangerous smile returning. So they've built their whole image on a foundation of lies. Exactly. And Robert? I've got contacts at most of the major vendors in town. When word gets out about payment issues, he let the implication hang in the air. We spent the next hour planning. Danny would position himself strategically around the venue on the wedding day, documenting everything with professional-grade equipment. He'd also put out feelers with his vendor contacts, preparing them for the possibility of payment disputes. One more thing, Danny said as we prepared to leave. I kept some stuff from the old days. Photos, videos from when we were kids. Marcus being normal before he became this. Might be useful for context, showing people who he really is underneath all the designer suits. I clasped his shoulder. Caroline always said you were the son she wished she'd had. His eyes got a little misty. She was the best, Mr. T, I mean Robert. She would have hated seeing what Marcus became. That afternoon, I made the call to Miranda Walsh. Her voice was polished, professional, Exactly what I'd expected from Charleston's premier wedding planner. Mr. Torres, how wonderful to finally speak with you. Marcus has told me so much about you. The lie rolled off her tongue smoothly. We both knew Marcus had said as little as possible about his blue-collar father. I'm sure he has, I replied dryly. Miranda, I need to meet with you to discuss the payment arrangements. There seem to be some misunderstandings that need clearing up. A pause. Oh, I see. Well, certainly we can arrange a meeting. Is there a problem with the financing? You could say that. Are you available tomorrow afternoon? I think it's important we discuss this face-to-face before any more vendor commitments are made. Her tone shifted, became more cautious. Of course, Mr. Torres. Shall we say 2 p.m. at my office? I hung up and immediately called Tom Bradley, my contractor friend. Tom, I need a favor. You know Miranda Walsh, right? Can you give her a call and put in a good word for my character? Tell her I'm solid, trustworthy, but that she should definitely hear me out if I have concerns about a project. Tom chuckled. Robert, you sound like you're planning something devious. I like it. Consider it done. The pieces were falling into place. Tomorrow's meeting with Miranda would be the first domino to fall, and once it did, Marcus's house of cards would come tumbling down. But as I prepared for sleep that night, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered doubts. Was I being too harsh? Was there a chance for reconciliation, for healing the wounds between us? Then I remembered his note. Given all the embarrassment you've caused our family. The voice went quiet. Miranda Walsh's office occupied the top floor of a converted antebellum mansion on Broad Street, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Charleston Harbor. I arrived 15 minutes early, using the time to study the framed photos lining her reception area. Dozens of happy couples, all looking blissfully unaware of the drama that might unfold behind the scenes. Miranda emerged from her office precisely at 2 p.m., a petite woman in her 40s with perfectly styled auburn hair and the kind of understated elegance that screamed old Charleston money. Her handshake was firm, her smile practiced, but genuine. Mr. Torres, such a pleasure to finally meet you in person. Please come in. Can I offer you some sweet tea? Coffee? Coffee would be great, thanks. I followed her into an office that looked like something from Southern Living magazine. Antique desk, Persian rugs, fresh magnolias in a crystal vase. She settled behind her desk with a leather portfolio, her expression expectant. Now, Marcus mentioned there might be some questions about the payment schedule. I leaned back in the leather chair, taking my time. Miranda, let me ask you something. In all your conversations with Marcus about this wedding, did he ever mention that I'm not invited? Her smile faltered. I'm sorry, what? You heard me correctly. My son banned me from his wedding, then sent me an $85,000 bill with a note saying I should be grateful he's allowing me to contribute. I pulled out the invoice and slid it across her polished desk. Take a look at that note at the bottom. Miranda's face went pale as she read Marcus's words. She looked up at me, then back at the paper, then up again. Mr. Torres, this is highly irregular. Marcus told me that family payments were all arranged, that you were fully supportive of their plans. Did he now? I kept my voice level, conversational. Tell me, Miranda, in your professional experience, how often do parents pay for weddings they're not allowed to attend? She was quiet for a long moment, clearly processing the implications. This is unprecedented. I've never encountered a situation quite like this. I imagine not. Now, I want you to understand something. I'm not some deadbeat trying to skip out on financial obligations. I'm a successful contractor who's been saving for my son's wedding since he was in high school. But I'll be damned if I'm going to fund a party that I'm not welcome at. Miranda set the invoice down carefully. What exactly are you telling me, Mr. Torres? I'm telling you that there will be no payment from me until Marcus treats me with the basic respect due to a father. No wire transfer, no check, nothing. And I want you to inform him of that fact. She rubbed her temples. Mr. Torres, we have contracts with vendors, deposits that are due, final payments that need to be made by Friday or what? Services get canceled? I shrugged. That sounds like Marcus's problem, not mine. But the deposits that have already been paid, the vendor commitments? Her professional composure was cracking. Mr. Torres, this could be a complete disaster. The reputation damage alone. Again, not my problem. I'm not the one who decided to plan an $85,000 wedding and then ban the person expected to pay for it. Miranda was quiet for several minutes, staring at the invoice. Finally, she looked up at me with something approaching respect. Mr. Torres, can I speak candidly? Please do. Your son has been challenging to work with. Demanding, condescending to staff, constantly changing requirements while expecting costs to stay the same. If I'm being honest, several vendors have commented on his attitude. I wasn't surprised, but hearing it confirmed still stung. What kind of comments? The florist said he made her assistant cry over the color of ribbon on the boutonnieres. The caterer mentioned that he'd never worked with someone so entitled. And Sophia? She paused. Sophia treats everyone like servants. The photographer actually asked me if she could bring security because she's concerned about their behavior on the wedding day. This was better than I'd hoped for. So, I'm not the only one Marcus has alienated. Far from it. To be perfectly frank, Mr. Torres, if the payment doesn't come through, some of these vendors might actually be relieved to cancel. I stood up, extending my hand. Miranda, I appreciate your honesty. I hope you understand that none of this is directed at you. You've been caught in the middle of a family dispute you didn't create. She shook my hand warmly. I understand completely. And Mr. Torres, for what it's worth, I hope your son comes to his senses. Any man who would treat his father this way. She shook her head sadly. Thank you. That means more than you know. As I walked back to my truck, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in months. The wheels were in motion now, and there was no stopping them. My phone buzzed with a text from Danny. Setup complete at the venue. This is going to be epic. By evening, the first cracks in Marcus's perfect facade were already showing. Miranda had called him as promised, and the fallout was immediate. My phone started ringing at 6 p.m., Marcus's name on the caller ID. I let it go to voicemail. Dad, what the hell do you think you're doing? Miranda says you're refusing to pay? This is insane. Call me back right now. The second call came an hour later, Sophia this time. Robert, this is completely unacceptable. Marcus is beside himself. You're going to ruin everything over some petty family drama. Be the bigger person here. I deleted both messages without listening to them completely. Tomorrow, I'd hear from them directly. Tonight, I was going to enjoy a quiet dinner and watch the sunset over Charleston Harbor, knowing that justice was finally coming for my ungrateful son. The next morning brought a phone call that I did answer. My old foreman, Jake Miller, calling from the construction site. Robert, you ain't gonna believe this, but your boy Marcus showed up here this morning looking for you, demanding to know why you weren't answering your phone, telling everyone who would listen that you were sabotaging his wedding out of jealousy. I chuckled. What did you tell him? I told him the truth, that you earned every penny in your bank account through honest work, and that if he wanted your money, he better start showing you some respect. Boy didn't like hearing that from a crew of construction workers, I can tell you that much. I bet he didn't. Thanks, Jake. I owe you one. Hell, Robert. After the way he talked down to us, acting like we were dirt under his shoes, I'd say we're even. Good luck with whatever you got planned. That boy needs a reality check. The validation from my work family meant everything. These were people who'd known Marcus since he was a kid, who'd watched him grow up on job sites during summer breaks. They'd seen his transformation from a respectful child to an entitled adult, and their support gave me strength. That afternoon, the dam finally burst. Marcus and Sophia showed up at my front door, and this time they weren't taking no for an answer. I heard them arguing on the porch before the doorbell even rang. He has to pay, Marcus. We can't cover this ourselves. I know that, Sophia. Just let me handle this, okay? I opened the door to find them both looking frazzled, their usual polished appearance cracked around the edges. Marcus was wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, but his hair was disheveled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. Sophia looked like she'd been crying, her makeup slightly smudged despite obvious attempts to repair it. "Dad, we need to talk." Marcus tried to push past me into the house, but I stayed firmly planted in the doorway. "Do we? Because the last time we talked, you made it pretty clear that I was an embarrassment to your family. Something about me not fitting in with your sophisticated crowd." "Dad, come on, that's not what? Not exactly what you said? Because I remember it very clearly, Marcus. Just like I remember the note you sent with that bill." Sophia stepped forward, turning on what I'm sure she thought was her most persuasive smile. "Robert, family is complicated. Sometimes we say things we don't mean when we're stressed about wedding planning. You understand, right? You were married to Marcus's mother." The casual way she invoked Caroline's memory, using my dead wife to manipulate me, sent a surge of anger through my chest. "Don't you dare bring Caroline into this. She would be horrified by the way you've both behaved." "She would want you to support our wedding," Sophia insisted. "She would want us to be happy." "She would want Marcus to be a better man than this," I shot back. "She would want him to treat his family with respect, not like a personal ATM." Marcus's composure finally cracked. "God damn it, Dad, just write the fucking check. You're ruining everything over your wounded pride. Vendors are threatening to cancel. Guests are starting to ask questions, and you're sitting here playing games." "Games?" I stepped closer to him, and for the first time in years I saw uncertainty in his eyes. "You think this is a game? You banned me from your wedding, son. You told me I was an embarrassment. And then you had the audacity to demand that I pay for the privilege of being excluded from your life. The money isn't about the wedding," he said desperately. "It's about family responsibility. Dad, you owe us this after everything." "After everything what, Marcus? After I raised you alone when your mother died? After I worked double shifts to pay for your college? After I sacrificed my own dreams to make sure you had every opportunity?" My voice was rising now, years of accumulated hurt pouring out. "What exactly do I owe you?" "You owe us for holding us back." The words exploded out of him like a dam bursting. "For being satisfied with mediocrity. For not pushing harder, not achieving more. Mom died because we couldn't afford the best doctors, the best treatments, and that's on you." The accusation hung in the air between us like a toxic cloud. I felt the familiar stab of guilt, the weight of every decision I'd questioned during Caroline's illness, every treatment option that had been just beyond our reach. But this time, instead of collapsing under the weight of his blame, I felt something else. Clarity. "Your mother died because she had an aggressive form of cancer that killed her, despite the best efforts of excellent doctors who worked within our insurance coverage," I said quietly. "She died surrounded by people who loved her, in a house that I bought and paid for through honest work, and she died knowing that her son was going to make something of himself." I paused, looking directly into Marcus's eyes. She didn't die knowing that son would grow up to be the kind of man who would blame his father for circumstances beyond anyone's control. She didn't die knowing he would become someone who measures love in dollar signs. Sophia grabbed Marcus's arm. "We should go. He's clearly not going to be reasonable about this." "No," I said firmly. "Don't leave yet. I want to make something crystal clear to both of you. The account is frozen. There will be no wire transfer, no check, no payment of any kind until you both apologize, genuinely apologize, for your behavior, and Marcus invites me to his wedding like a proper son should." "That's blackmail," Sophia spat. "No, that's consequences. There's a difference." Marcus's face cycled through several emotions: anger, frustration, desperation, and finally something that might have been panic. "Dad, please. The deposits, the contracts. If we can't pay, we'll lose everything. The venue, the caterer, all of it. Then I guess you'll have to figure out another way to pay for it. Maybe Sophia's family can help, or maybe you can take out a loan. Or maybe you can have a smaller, more modest wedding that you can actually afford. We can't ask my parents, Sophia said quickly. They already think Marcus is beneath me. If they find out about the financial problems. The admission slipped out before she could stop it, and I saw Marcus flinch. So there it was, the truth behind their desperation. Sophia's wealthy family looked down on Marcus the same way he looked down on me. The irony was almost too perfect. Well, I said calmly, I guess you have some difficult decisions to make, but those decisions don't involve my money. I stepped back and began to close the door, but Marcus wedged his foot in the gap. Dad, wait, please, I'll invite you to the wedding. Okay? You can come. Just send the money. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw not the successful architect he pretended to be, but a scared young man who had built his entire identity on appearance and status. For just a moment, I felt sorry for him. Marcus, that's not how this works. You can't just uninvite me and then re-invite me because you need money. An invitation given under financial duress isn't really an invitation at all. Then what do you want? He asked desperately. I want my son back, I said simply. The boy who used to help me fix things around the house, who used to be proud of his dad's work, who used to understand that family is about more than money. But I don't think that boy exists anymore. I closed the door gently but firmly, leaving them standing on the porch. Through the window I watched them argue for several more minutes before finally leaving, their voices carrying on the evening air like the sound of dreams being shattered. That night, I sat on my back porch with a glass of bourbon, watching the stars appear one by one over Charleston's skyline. My phone rang constantly. Marcus, Sophia, even Miranda Walsh trying to negotiate some kind of compromise. I ignored them all. Tomorrow was Friday, the deadline for final payments to most of the vendors. Soon, Marcus would learn what it really meant to live with the consequences of his choices. Friday morning arrived with the kind of crisp clarity that only December in Charleston can bring. I woke early, made myself a strong cup of coffee, and settled into my favorite chair to wait. The calls started coming in around 9 a.m. Danny was my first update. Robert, you should see this place. It's like watching a ship sink in slow motion. The florist just loaded half the arrangements back into her van. Apparently the check bounced. The caterer's truck is still here, but they're not unloading anything. I smiled grimly. What about Marcus and Sophia? Oh, they're here. Running around like chickens with their heads cut off, making phone calls, arguing with vendors. Marcus just screamed at the wedding planner so loud that guests in the parking lot could hear him. The next call came from Miranda Walsh herself, her professional composure finally cracking completely. Mr. Torres, I have to ask one more time. Is there any possibility of payment? The venue is threatening to cancel, the caterer is packing up, and I have a very angry bride and groom on my hands. Miranda, I told you my conditions. Have they been met? A long pause. Marcus did mention that you're now invited to the wedding. And, well, his exact words were, tell my father he can come if he wants, but he better bring a fucking checkbook. I had to laugh. That's not quite the heartfelt invitation I was looking for. I didn't think so. Mr. Torres, I'm going to be completely frank with you. This wedding is falling apart. Even if payment came through right now, I'm not sure we could salvage it. Several vendors are refusing to continue working with Marcus and Sophia regardless of money. Their behavior has been unprecedented. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of this, Miranda. You don't deserve the abuse I'm sure you've been taking. Thank you for saying that. And Mr. Torres, for what it's worth, I think your son is making the biggest mistake of his life by treating you this way. The irony wasn't lost on me. A wedding planner I'd met twice showed me more respect and understanding than my own son. By noon, the dam had completely burst. My phone was ringing nonstop with calls from Marcus, increasingly desperate and incoherent. I finally answered one, putting it on speaker so I could continue reading my newspaper. Dad, please, you have to help us. Everything's canceled. The venue, the food, the flowers. It's all gone. Guests are showing up and there's nothing here. I could hear Sophia crying in the background, her sobs punctuated by what sounded like her yelling at someone, probably another vendor or maybe her own family. That sounds terrible, Marcus, it really does. Then help us. Wire the money. We can still save some of this. Have you learned anything from this experience, son? What? What are you talking about? I've learned that my father is a vindictive asshole who... I hung up. Some people, it seemed, were incapable of learning. The afternoon brought a parade of increasingly frantic calls. Sophia called to inform me that her parents were disgusted by the whole situation and were considering pulling their ongoing financial support for Marcus's architecture firm. Marcus called to tell me that guests were leaving, that people were taking photos and videos of the disaster, that his reputation was being destroyed. Good, I told him during what would be our final conversation of the day. Maybe now you'll understand what it feels like to be humiliated by someone you trusted. But it was the call from Danny that gave me the most satisfaction. Robert, you magnificent bastard, you should see this. I got it all on video. Marcus screaming at the wedding planner, Sophia having a complete meltdown in her wedding dress, guests standing around confused while vendors pack up their stuff. It's like a reality TV show, except better because it's real. Please tell me you got the part where Marcus blamed everyone but himself. Oh, I got that and so much more. He actually tried to physically stop the caterer from leaving, grabbed the guy's arm and started shouting about contracts and lawsuits. The caterer just looked at him and said, "Son, you can't sue me for not working for free." I could picture it perfectly. Marcus, who had spent years building his image as a sophisticated, successful professional, reduced to begging and threatening people in front of his wedding guests. The boy who had once been embarrassed by his blue-collar father was now providing entertainment for half of Charleston's social elite. That evening, I took a long walk through my neighborhood, past the houses where I'd done construction work over the years, past the school where Marcus had played Little League, past the church where Caroline and I had been married 35 years earlier. It was a life I'd built through honest work and genuine relationships, not through manipulation and appearances. When I got home, there was one final message on my answering machine. Not from Marcus or Sophia, but from Tom Bradley, my old contractor friend. "Robert, just wanted you to know that word's getting around about what happened today. People are talking, and not about you, about Marcus. Folks remember you as a good man who raised his boy right, and they're wondering what went wrong. Don't you worry about any damage to your reputation. If anything, people respect you more for standing up for yourself." The weekend passed in blessed silence. No calls from Marcus, no desperate texts from Sophia, no updates from vendors or wedding planners. It was as if the whole disaster had simply evaporated, leaving behind only the echo of consequences finally catching up with someone who thought he was untouchable. On Sunday evening, I was working in my garage, restoring an old wooden rocking chair that had belonged to Caroline's grandmother, when I heard a car pull into my driveway. Through the window, I saw a vehicle I didn't recognize, a modest Honda Civic that looked like it had seen better days. To my surprise, it was Sophia who got out of the car. But this wasn't the polished, designer-clad woman I'd grown accustomed to seeing. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore jeans and a sweater that looked like they'd come from Target, and her face was bare of the heavy makeup she usually favored. She looked younger, more real. She knocked softly on the garage door, and when I opened it, I could see that she'd been crying. Not the dramatic, manipulative tears I'd witnessed before, but the quiet, exhausted crying of someone who had finally hit rock bottom. "Robert, I'm sorry to bother you. I know you probably don't want to see me, but I need to talk to you. Just me, not Marcus. He doesn't even know I'm here." I studied her for a long moment. There was something different about her demeanor, something that made me curious despite everything that had happened. "Come in," I said finally, gesturing toward 2 lawn chairs I'd set up near my workbench. "Can I get you some sweet tea? Coffee?" "Tea would be nice, thank you." I poured 2 glasses from the pitcher I kept in the garage mini-fridge. noting how she wrapped her hands around the glass like she was seeking warmth and comfort from something so simple. Sophia, I have to say, this is the last thing I expected after everything that's happened. She nodded, looking down at her hands. I bet. Robert, I need to tell you something, and I need you to know that I'm not here to ask for money or try to fix the wedding situation. That's over, done. Okay, I'm listening. My parents cut us off completely. Not just for the wedding. They've pulled their financial support for Marcus's firm, canceled the lease on our apartment that they were paying for, even took back the car I was driving. They said they were humiliated beyond repair by what happened at the venue, and that they couldn't be associated with such a public spectacle. I winced despite myself. I might have been angry at both of them, but the idea of parents completely abandoning their child still struck me as cruel. I'm sorry to hear that, Sophia. That must be difficult. The thing is, she continued, her voice getting stronger, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. For the first time in my adult life, I had to look at myself, really look, without all the designer clothes and expensive restaurants and luxury vacations. And I didn't like what I saw. She took a sip of her tea, gathering her courage. Robert, I've spent the last 3 days thinking about everything that led up to this disaster, and I keep coming back to one moment. Do you remember last Christmas when you brought those tamales to our apartment? I nodded. It wasn't a memory I was likely to forget. I was so horrible to you, not just dismissive, actively cruel. I whispered to Marcus that having you there made us look poor, that his successful friends would judge us if they knew his father was just a construction worker. I made him choose between his image and his family, and I knew exactly what I was doing. The honesty was unexpected, and more powerful than any apology I might have imagined. Why are you telling me this, Sophia? Because I grew up in a house where love was conditional on appearance, where your worth was measured by your bank account and your social connections. My parents taught me that people like you, people who work with their hands, who choose family over career advancement, who find satisfaction in simple things, were somehow lesser, and I believed them. She looked up at me for the first time since she'd started talking, her eyes clear and direct. But this weekend, after everything fell apart, I kept thinking about something. In all the time I've known Marcus, I've never seen him as happy as he was in those old photos he showed me from when he was a kid. Playing baseball with you, working on projects in this garage, camping trips where you taught him to fish. He glowed when he talked about those memories, but then he'd always end by saying something like, "Of course, that was before I knew any better." What changed his mind about those times? I did, she said simply. I convinced him that his childhood was something to be embarrassed about, that having a father who worked construction was a liability in our social circle. I made him believe that success meant cutting ties with anything that didn't fit our carefully crafted image. I set down my tea glass, processing what she was telling me. Sophia, this is a lot to take in. What are you hoping to accomplish by sharing this with me? I'm not hoping to accomplish anything, honestly. Marcus is furious with me for coming here. He's still convinced that you're the villain in this story, that you destroyed our wedding out of spite and jealousy. But I know the truth. We destroyed it ourselves through our greed and arrogance and cruelty. She stood up, smoothing down her jeans nervously. I just wanted you to know that someone understands what really happened here. You didn't destroy a wedding, Robert. You held up a mirror, and we didn't like what we saw reflected back at us. The difference is, I'm ready to do something about it, and Marcus isn't. What does that mean for your relationship? Sophia's smile was sad but genuine. It means I'm moving back to Atlanta to stay with my sister while I figure out who I really am when I'm not playing dress-up in someone else's idea of success. And it means Marcus is going to have to decide whether he wants to be the man his father raised him to be, or the man I turned him into. She headed toward the garage door, then turned back one more time. Robert, I know this doesn't fix anything, and I know you have no reason to forgive either of us. But I want you to know that your son was lucky to have you as a father, even if he's too stubborn and proud to see it right now. After she left, I sat in the garage for a long time, watching the sun set through the open door. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, I felt something other than anger or satisfaction. I felt hope, not necessarily for a reconciliation with Marcus, but for the possibility that people could change, could recognize their mistakes, and work to become better. The following Tuesday brought an unexpected visitor. I was replacing a section of fence in my backyard when I heard the gate creak open. I looked up to see Marcus standing there, but like Sophia, he seemed different. He was wearing work clothes, actual jeans and a t-shirt instead of his usual designer attire, and he looked like he hadn't slept much in the past few days. "Dad," he said quietly, "can we talk?" I set down my hammer and straightened up, studying my son's face. There was none of the arrogance or entitlement I'd grown accustomed to seeing there. Instead, he looked lost. "Sure. Hand me that level from the toolbox, would you?" He did as I asked, and for a moment we worked together in silence, him holding boards while I measured and marked. It reminded me of countless weekend projects we'd tackled together when he was young, back when he'd been eager to learn from his old man. "Sophia left me," he said finally. "I know. She came by Sunday to talk." His head snapped up. "She what? What did she tell you?" "The truth, about her role in turning you against me, about her family cutting you off, about her decision to start over." I continued working as I spoke, not wanting to make this more dramatic than it needed to be. "She took responsibility for her actions, Marcus. That's more than I can say for you." He was quiet for several minutes, helping me position the next fence board. "Dad, I lost everything. The business is failing without her parents' backing. I had to move back into that studio apartment across town, and half of Charleston is talking about what an ass I made of myself at the wedding venue. I'm sorry to hear that, son. I truly am. Are you? Because it feels like this is exactly what you wanted to happen." I stopped working and looked at him directly. "Marcus, what I wanted was for my son to treat me with respect. What I wanted was to be part of your life instead of just your bank account. What I wanted was for you to remember that family is supposed to matter more than appearances. But you destroyed my wedding." "No, son. I refused to pay for a party I wasn't invited to. There's a difference." I picked up another board, checking it for straightness. "You and Sophia made choices. To exclude me, to treat vendors poorly, to build your entire life on other people's money and approval. I just declined to enable those choices anymore." He leaned against the fence post, looking more defeated than I'd ever seen him. "I don't know how to fix this, Dad. I don't know how to fix any of it." For the first time in our conversation, I heard something in his voice that gave me hope. Genuine remorse, not just self-pity about the consequences he was facing. "Marcus, do you remember when you were 12 and you broke Mrs. Henderson's window with that baseball?" He nodded slowly. "What did I tell you to do? You made me go apologize to her face-to-face and work in her garden for 3 weeks to pay for the replacement glass. And what did you learn from that? That taking responsibility for your mistakes is harder than avoiding them, but it's the only way to sleep at night afterward." "Exactly. So let me ask you something. In all of this mess, all of these broken relationships and burnt bridges, what role did you play? Not what Sophia did, not what her parents did, not what I did. What did you do?" Marcus was quiet for a long time, so long that I finished installing 2 more fence boards before he spoke again. "I treated you like shit," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "I was ashamed of you, ashamed of where I came from, ashamed of the fact that you worked with your hands instead of wearing suits to fancy offices. I convinced myself that your love had conditions, that you were trying to hold me back instead of supporting my dreams." He looked down at his hands, which were now dirty from helping with the fence work. "And the worst part is I became exactly the kind of person Mom would have been disappointed in. She used to say that character was more important than reputation, that how you treat people when you don't need anything from them shows who you really are. I forgot all of that. I set down my tools and walked over to where he was standing. Marcus, your mother loved you more than life itself, but she would have been heartbroken to see the man you became over the past few years. Not because of your success, she would have been proud of your achievements, but because of how you achieved them and who you stepped on along the way. Tears were running down his face now, the first genuine emotion I'd seen from him in years. I miss her, Dad. I miss her so much, and I know I blamed you for losing her because it was easier than accepting that sometimes bad things just happen to good people. I miss her too, son. Every single day. How do I fix this? How do I become the man she raised me to be instead of this person I turned into? I put my hand on his shoulder, feeling the tension there, the weight of years of mistakes and pride and stubbornness. The same way you fix anything that's broken, Marcus. One piece at a time with patience and hard work, and the understanding that some things can't be rushed. We worked together in silence for the rest of the afternoon, father and son, building something together for the first time in years. It wasn't a wedding or a business deal or a social media moment. It was just a fence, solid and practical and built to last. As the sun began to set, Marcus helped me clean up the tools and put them away in the garage. Before he left, he turned to me with an expression I hadn't seen since he was a child. Dad, I know I don't deserve it, but would you be willing to have dinner with me sometime? Nothing fancy, just maybe that diner on Savannah Highway where we used to go after Little League games? I smiled, feeling something ease in my chest that had been tight for years. I'd like that, son. I'd like that very much. And Dad, I'm sorry for all of it. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I needed you to know. It's a start, Marcus. It's a start. 3 months later, I was back in my garage working on another project, this time a wooden toy chest for my neighbor's new granddaughter, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer it anyway. Mr. Torres, this is Jennifer Walsh, Miranda's sister. She gave me your number because she thought you might be interested in a business opportunity. I'm listening. I'm opening a small boutique hotel here in Charleston, and I need someone to handle the construction and renovation work. Miranda told me about how you handled the situation with your son's wedding, and she said you were one of the most professional and principled people she'd ever dealt with. Would you be interested in discussing the project? I looked around my garage at the tools I'd been using for 30 years, at the photos on the wall of projects I'd completed and buildings I'd helped construct. At 72, most people would be thinking about retirement, but I felt more energetic and purposeful than I had in years. I'd be very interested, Jennifer. When would you like to meet? As I hung up the phone, I realized that standing up for myself hadn't just cost me Marcus's wedding money. It had earned me something far more valuable. Respect, from others, and more importantly, from myself. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Dad, just finished my first week at the new job. It's honest work, and I'm remembering why I used to love building things. Thanks for the recommendation. Dinner Friday? I smiled, typing back. Proud of you, son. Friday sounds perfect. Outside, a mockingbird was singing in the magnolia tree, and the late afternoon light was casting long shadows across my backyard. It had been a difficult journey, full of pain and anger and broken relationships, but it had led me back to something I'd almost forgotten, the knowledge that some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight costs you everything you thought you wanted. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the chance to face the consequences of their choices. Sometimes love means saying no, even when it breaks your heart. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that painful lesson becomes the foundation for something stronger and more genuine than what came before. The wedding that never happened had taught us all something valuable about the difference between a celebration and a spectacle, between family and finance, between love and leverage. It wasn't the lesson any of us had expected to learn, but it was the lesson we all needed. As I returned to my work on the toy chest, carefully sanding each piece until it was smooth and perfect, I thought about legacy, not the kind that comes from bank accounts or social status, but the kind that's built through daily choices, small kindnesses, and the courage to stand up for what's right even when it's hard. That night, I fell asleep to the sound of rain on the roof, content in the knowledge that I had finally remembered who I was, and that sometimes the best way to save someone you love is to stop saving them from themselves. If you enjoyed this story of family, consequences, and redemption, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more incredible real-life stories. Let us know in the comments what you think Marcus should have done differently, and whether you believe people can truly change when they face the consequences of their actions. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's worst impulses. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.